With the news that we have more Hunter x Hunter chapters dropping for literally the first time in freaking years, I think it's time we dive into the most recent complete arc of the series, which takes place directly after the anime ends. So yes, everything in this video follows straight after the final episode with Gon and his daddy-o, and it pretty much just elaborates on everything that is going down inside of the so-called Dark Continent. If you want me to cover even more of the recent Hunter x Hunter stuff, push this video to 5k likes and leave a comment down below, as it truly helps out with pushing my content to a bunch of new amazing people. Anyway, enough of that, let's get into the start of the Hunter x Hunter Dark Continent Expedition arc. So, as we kick things off, the little green man himself, Beans, who was actually, not green in the manga, he barges into the Zodiac's conference room shouting about a big emergency, as Cheadle at the same time was about to make a large announcement. The Zodiacs initially think that she will quit as the chairman, but Cheadle assures them before letting Bean talk. He shows a video in which the Kakin Empire's king, a large man named Nasubi Hui-Go-Ro, goes on a rant about bearing all of humanity's future dreams on their back. From this, he ends up declaring that they, the Kakin Empire, will advance into the Dark Continent. Hearing this, all of the Zodiacs are taken aback, aside from Kanzai, who's completely clueless about the Dark Continent to start with. Gel explains that the Dark Continent is a place that can't be found on the world map, but is where other human-like beings and other magical beasts thrive. Mesostom also adds in that every other time humans have also tried to go there, disasters have fallen upon them back at home. Due to this happening a few times, 200 years ago the 5 leading nations of the world, called the V5, made a treaty to never go back there. Cheadle explains that 30 years ago, Kakin technically became a new nation by taking advantage of an incident and jacking the country's monarchy, turning it into a parliamentary democracy, at which time they likely did not renew their treaties or frankly just threw them away. As the Zodiacs continue to discuss, Beans interrupts them, pointing at the screen and stating that in fact, the really troubling part actually comes next. Looking back at the video, it shows Nasubi as he introduces the person that will lead the expedition to the Dark Continent. He proudly announces the legendary pro-hunter Isaac Netero, the previous chairman of the Hunter Association, and states that they have hired his son, Beyond Netero, to lead the expedition to the New World. The Zodiacs are surprised once again as they all react to the news of Netero even having a son. Dude literally never even brought up his son once throughout the previous 150 damn episodes of the anime. Anyway, Gel suggests that they verify if it's true or not, but as Beyond starts to give his speech, multiple Zodiacs immediately recognize his resemblance to the late chairman. Beyond promises that he will take care of everything, and that everyone will have an equal opportunity in this new world. He screams and encourages everyone to come to Kakin so they can embark on their new journey to the new world. Beans discloses that there were in fact 2 DVDs that the chairman Netero had left behind. As Bean slides the second DVD onto the table, he explains that Netero told him to show all of the members of the Zodiacs the other DVD if anyone came forth claiming to be his son. However, Ging and Pariston are absent, so he's unable to proceed any further. Because of this though, Cheadle interrupts the arguing Zodiacs to begin her own announcement. Yet, we aren't exactly privy to this information as of yet, as instead we actually skip away from the Zodiacs to learn that currently the people of the New World are blown away with Beyond's announcement and can't stop watching it on their version of YouTube. Beyond, who's literally just chillin', having a few drinks in his lair, overhears that the king has been notified by the V5 to revoke the previous announcement and instead sign the treaty. After literally getting the Togashi treatment and having a book of information shoved in his face by his curly-haired friend, an annoyed Beyond decides to ignore the permissions of the V5 about exploring the Dark Continent, as he wants to explore the unknown world without supervision. Standing there and just looking mad jacked, he says to his 10 important followers, one of which just happens to be that damn snake Pariston, that he is willing to see a land that nobody has ever seen before, meet people no one's ever met, obtain things that no one's ever touched, and all by his own volition without being restrained by no one. So, skipping away from Beyond, back over to Cheadle, we learn that her news was that they didn't actually need to wait for Ging and Pariston to see the DVD, as technically they had resigned as members of the Zodiacs. Therefore, there are now only 10 Zodiacs, allowing them to fulfill the conditions, and also, on top of that, something that's actually more important than the previous 2, the V5 have already given them a special assignment, to hunt Beyond Netero. Elsewhere, the IPA director and newly assigned Deputy Secretary Steiner, who are both associated with the V5, walk through a heavily secured hallway and discuss their role of the organization in accordance with the upcoming journey to the Dark Continent. As they enter an elevator, the director mentions that the gatekeeper of the New World hates ill-mannered visitors, and should the negotiations with the Kakin Empire break down, it will be very difficult to stop them. Steiner asks what would happen, to which the older dude talks about Pandora's box being opened, which Steiner questions as a figure of speech. However, the IPA director explains that he once thought that, back when he was young and before he had come here. He then opens a door to the International Permit Agency basement that's filled with various atrocities and corpses resulting from the last entry into the Dark Continent. The bewildered deputy shudders, wondering what the hell this could be, to which it's revealed that all of these atrocities used to be human. The director hands over a book called The Journey to the New World to Steiner, explaining that it was once considered fiction, but is now a legendary text that contains travels to the Dark Continent from hundreds of years ago. The director further explains that all of the rung corpses in the basement were discovered on this side, or more specifically in the known world, and none of them had ever travelled into the Dark Continent. He instructs Steiner to memorize every detail of the book and identify the risks of travelling to the New World. As they walk along through the basement, one creature slams against the glass, which takes Steiner in surprise. The director explains that this one creature is the lone survivor in their facility, but it is no longer human. The creature does not need sustenance like humans do, and it has already lived for 50 years, being completely self-sustaining. Every attempt humanity has made at exploring the Dark Continent has resulted in them fleeing home and bringing home a calamity of mass destruction with them. The director continues that the creature was once a hunter who was exposed to a virus that renders him immune to death. Meanwhile, the Zodiacs watch the second DVD, where former chairman, the big OG Netero, explains that his randomly mysterious son, Beyond, once travelled to the Dark Continent, and brought back new threats that resulted in considerable casualties, so he forbade further attempts by Beyond and the Hunter Association until after his own death. Netero explains that he's only set foot there twice, and when he was young, but he personally realised that the strength required to remain there wasn't what he sought. The New World was a harsh battle against Mother Nature itself, where no victor exists. Netero declares that he wants the Hunter Association to explore the Dark Continent before his son, telling them to overcome the risks of the New World and return with hope, as the difficulty is undisputedly A. Though quickly before ending, he emphasizes that this is a request rather than an order, and it's completely up to them to choose whether or not they go. Cheadle accepts the mission, saying that since it's an order, they literally have no other choice, but states that no other hunters in the organization should join them. Sayu and Kanzai assert their opposition to Beyond's hunt, stating that it makes the race to the New World unfair, as Beyond has been preparing for decades for this moment. One of the Zodiacs asks if any of them have actually thought about going to the New World before, with one of them mentioning that Ging is the only one they can think of who has the ambition to go to the Dark Continent. Gel says that if Ging does help, the race will be fair for argument's sake, otherwise Kakin and Beyond will have a big head start. As all of the Zodiacs argue over their next course of action, Bean suddenly receives a call from someone mysterious. With all of the Zodiacs having followed Beans, it's revealed that Beyond Netero had indeed just called him, and now appears before the Zodiacs. Standing there, he firstly gives the what's up to Big Beans, as obviously he's been around for years. Then, he instructs them to call the V5, telling them that they have captured Beyond Netero, leaving all of the Zodiacs shocked with the absolute unpredictable turn of events. Elsewhere, Steiner begins his forte into the prolific book that he is supposed to memorize. There, it's shown that 5 threats humanity has previously brought back from the New World are: the codependence of desire, which is a gaseous life form; a sphere that protects the mysterious ruins called the botanical weapon Bryon; a monster that infects its prey with a homicidal desire known as the snake Hellbell. This one here is my favourite, the trade-off between life and pleasure, known as the beast that keeps people as its pets. And finally, endless despair disguised as hope, Zobei, the immortality disease. After reading all of this, Steiner only reflects, thinking that this indeed is no place humanity should ever venture. So again, back with the Zodiacs, it's shown that Beyond is now being kept within a cell while Cheadle interviews him, and the rest of the Zodiacs stand by and watch. Sitting there in a seemingly helpless situation, Beyond makes a prediction that the Zodiacs will end up releasing and joining him in his expedition to the Dark Continent. Cheadle quickly dismisses the idea though, calling it an unrealistic delusion, but still, Beyond tells her to hear him out before the V5 make their own reports. Having placed the recorder on the table, Cheadle proposes that the conversation shall be recorded, which Beyond accepts. However, as she stares at him, she knows Beyond is technically on the offensive, while she and the Zodiacs have to decode and figure him out. Elsewhere, the V5 and Deputy Secretary Steiner discussed the previous Dark Continent expeditions. It's shown that their world is actually located in the center of the massive Lake Mobius, of which itself is also located within the Dark Continent. In their records, there are 149 attempts to challenge the voyage, but out of that, only 28 people survived from the 5 trips that actually managed to return. Out of them, Beyond is the only one who is still alive today. Those said 5 voyages that had returned were also unofficial and took place after the V5 formed the Inviolability Treaty, so mankind has never officially succeeded in making a round trip to the New World. Out of the 28 survivors, only 3 were able to return to their ordinary lives, which makes a survival rate of 0.04%. One old-ass hag of an employee asks about guides, and another member answers that there are a race of people called the Gatekeepers who summon a being to help transport people to the Dark Continent. As a few people talk amongst themselves, a larger man interrupts, pointing out that any talk of risk only adds fuel to the fire for countries and businesses that pour money into the stuff in the hope that they'll get a return. Another employee implies that they need to know the official way to be able to stop Kakin from advancing towards the New World. Steiner explains that Article 4 of the UN Chartered Basic Relations Treaty states that international threats clauses 7 through 9 prohibit active involvement with contagious diseases, biological hazards, and unknown menaces. But if it's determined that a nation is at risk, then the use of force including military intervention is permitted. And as we all know from the freaking Chimera Ant arc, when the army is involved, they are dropping some freaking next level biological weaponry, probably implanted inside of some poor old dude. Anyways, Steiner says that considering this, to end the situation in a peaceful manner, it is necessary to invite Kakin to the V5, then through that they will reorganize as the V6 and unofficially support Kakin's journey to the New World, making them also look good in turn. Steiner continues explaining that there are tons of uninhabited islands in a neutral zone inside of the far ocean boundary, so they can also pretend that they are a part of the new continent and have civilians spend their lives there while they can actually leave the voyage to Kakin, but only on the condition that their members are carefully selected. Which makes sense, as obviously you wouldn't want some weak nobodies rolling around on the Dark Continent, possibly putting others in harm's way. Like, everybody just needs to be able to hold their own in a fight. Back over with our hunters, as Cheadle and Beyond continue on their interview, Kanzai is just utterly perplexed about the conversation and asks someone to translate it for him. Sacho simply answers that Beyond got a ticket to the Dark Continent in exchange for making Kakin's king a historical hero. But because the V5 doesn't like to lose, they are making the Zodiacs babysit Beyond. Kanzai asks if it's good for them, and Gel explains that technically it's good and bad, as if they succeed it's possible they'll be allowed to hunt on the continent. Back inside the cell, Beyond insists that Cheadle contact the V5. He insists that they'll tell Beyond that they'll accept a supervised voyage and that the chaperone will be the Hunter Association. After a moment, Cheadle accepts under the conditions that he's telling the truth. But first, they have to confirm some stuff. Walking outside of the room, she asks Mizai to contact the V5. Instantly, it's confirmed, just like Beyond said, that the Zodiacs will indeed go to the Dark Continent with Beyond, even against their will. When Kanzai gets confused again, Gel explains that Beyond will be transported to the Dark Continent as a prisoner, but somehow he'll probably escape, leaving them with the task of fighting off threats, maintaining Beyond, and somehow stopping Beyond's comrades from also interfering in their mission. Once everyone begins to leave, Sacho offers to watch over Beyond, which Cheadle accepts. She then turns to the imprisoned man and tells him that he should be prepared as it will be a long imprisonment, and hearing this, Beyond laughs as he says he'll wait as long as it takes. Earlier on, over at the meeting place, and as everyone left that room, Steiner thinks aloud about how their official stance is that the book he read recently is a writer's fantasy, but in actuality, the book is the most important piece of criteria on the entire planet. Having listened to this explanation, the IPA director cracks up and slaps him on the back while replying that he'll be a great manager just like him someday. He then states that of course an honest world would be best, yet peace is much more of an important manner. In some other place, the Black Whale transport ship is presented to the people of Kakin. It is said to carry about 200,000 people, and in the next 5 years, King Masubi has declared that he will send 500 ships to the Dark Continent, which totals around 100 million people. Man is actually trying to exterminate the lives of 100 million innocent civilians without him even realizing. Ain't no way a normal man is surviving on this freaking domain of death. Anyways, the TV reporters continue to explain that the maiden voyage will carry Beyond, the king, and 14 princesses. Any civilians will be picked by lottery, and those odds are currently only 1 in 1,300, which is, like extremely low according to the news reporter here. In a recording studio nearby, reporters discussed the bestiary known to mankind, which is that book that all of the hunters have that ranks certain threats they could go up against in a fight. Anyway, a female reporter asks someone to explain to them in terms that they would understand how dangerous the C-class ranking is. The man states that it's things like bears, sharks, poisonous snakes, and stuff you might come across if you're unlucky that might turn fatal in the worst case scenario. Another anchor there states that online opinions declare that the Dark Continent surely must have a rank B or A creatures. Laughing in response, the random man says, well, of course nobody can count them out completely, but these people also assume that mankind has never even ventured there in the past because dangerous creatures exist. Oh my lord, the amount of information Togashi is actually shoving down our throats right now. Anyway, he continues explaining that many ancient ruins describe the calamities caused by going to the continent. Science has concluded that these mass casualties were from infectious viruses, and now with modern medicine, they will easily be able to prevent such problems from occurring. On top of that, the stuff they do find is much more likely to be hiding miraculous compounds that can help mankind advance further than it ever has before. As the broadcast comes to an end, that dude declares that this will be the greatest gold rush in all of human history. Having rolled up as the broadcast was finishing on the TV, Ging Freaks, the big man himself, arrives in the lair of Beyond's base and confronts Pariston Hill. Ging explains that if the government doesn't answer to Beyond's taunt and send them to the Dark Continent, Pariston in response would force their hand and send in 5,000 Chimera ants. He continues telling him that he will no longer allow Pariston to do as he pleases and tells him that he is going to play with him personally until he begs him to stop. Pariston looks at Ging with his deep dark eyes and responds confidently, asking if he's finally going to pay him some attention. Ging, who's visibly disgusted with Pariston, just answers that he might just be doing it for his own fun. Back over at the Hunter Association, Cheadle contacts one of the OGs of the series, Leorio, over the phone and invites him to become a member of the Zodiacs. She explains that the Hunter Association thinks his skills are best suited to fill the position and they absolutely need his help in the upcoming mission. When Leorio implies that he will turn down the offer, Cheadle continues to say that there is a medical study waiting for him and she will be the head medical professor herself. Hearing this, Leorio, who in most cases would have just rejected the offer, ends up accepting as he knows that there's no chance this will ever happen again in his life. He thanks her for granting him this opportunity. However, he just has one request. He asks Cheadle if there is still another position available in the Zodiacs, because if there is, he is someone he'd like to recommend for the post. And we all know who that eye-coveting, chain-wielding king is. Back over in the lair of Pion's base, which by the way has the scary girl May's picture now featured on the TV. Not sure why Togashi decided to chuck this on here, but holy, it plays to the whole feeling of this meeting here, having this scary ass pic of a child featured on the television. There, Pariston states that the Hunter exam will begin soon, and that he knows Ging is aware of the 5,000 Chimera ants he has hidden away as a backup to force the V5 into the expedition. He thinks Cheadle will separate the Hunter exam from the organization, which Pariston disapproves of. When Ging asks him why he would want to destroy the Hunter Association, despite feeling attached to it, Pariston asks him to prove it, starting from his motives. Ging starts to explain that Pariston is seeking something new that could entertain him, as the association has started to tire him. Because of this, Ging assumes that Pariston thought it was time to move on and find new targets. The fastest way is by scattering the Chimera ants across the world, while also opening the previously illegal routes to the Dark Continent. He continues to say that Pariston's underlings might easily pass the exam and become organisational members. However, he cannot see the link between why Pariston would brandish the threat of the Chimera ants against the association. He continues by proclaiming that Pariston and he are kindred spirits, and their ideas are always a tiny bit off the beaten track. Pariston's smile weakens as he concedes that Ging is spot on. He reflects that normally people find happiness in loving and being loved, but he feels happy most when he is hated, and he continually feels this irresponsible need to destroy the things he loves most. Malevolently, he wonders aloud if it is all that weird, with Ging replying that Pariston is completely off the beaten mark and asserting that they are different in that respect. Curly tries to ask a question, but is completely shunned by Ging, much to his dismay. Uzuman, this Hajime-looking wannabe, stands up and threatens the former boar Zodiac, but before he can even do anything, he is lifted up by Ging and imagines his own face being carved in by the latter's plethora of punches. Coming back to reality, the dude realizes he probably would have just witnessed his own death, as Ging then orders him to get lost if he truly understands what happened. Then quickly looking around the room, he finds a robotic girl in the corner and asks her if she is the highest ranking person. Pariston interrupts his intruding though, and calls himself the obvious number 2 within the team. Standing there, Ging observes with surprise that people are not ranked by strength, before releasing the poor dude he almost beat the shit out of. Pariston objects that he has been underestimated, but Ging coldly states he would end up killing him if they were to fight. However, he would continue to display his disgusting smile and laugh unless his very spirit was defeated. He then declares himself number 2 and challenges anyone that might oppose him. Elsewhere, Mizai, the big cow of the Zodiacs, heads out in search of Kurapika, as that was obviously the person Leorio had recommended for the position. Once arriving at Kurapika's place, Linton informs him that he is currently out but can leave a message for him if he'd like. Mizai though literally insists to wait. Man's instead like, "Can I have a coffee? And don't worry, I'll manage with the milk," which is actually insane when you think about it. But anyways, the 3 men then block his pathway. Calmly though, the Cow King pulls out and then shows them a warning card, which indicates that acts of violence are not allowed. When the men try to move to attack him, Mizai uses the card to restrain the men's movement, most likely a part of his Nen ability called Cross Game. Sitting down in the corner of the room, he tells the men that they'll be able to move in a moment, but warns them that if they try and resist more, it'll continue to immobilize them. Finally, the bartender interrupts, telling him that Kurapika is actually in the basement. He warns the cow though to not anger him, as he is really upset about something that concerns their group specifically. Before he can finish explaining though, Kurapika himself appears, asking what all the noise is and who was the random man wearing a cow uniform in his house. Mizai Storm introduces himself from the Hunter Association and asks Kurapika if he's heard about the news regarding the Dark Continent expedition. He invites him to join the Zodiacs under the request of Leorio, but Kurapika quickly declines, telling him that he is busy. Mizai though suddenly brings up the prolific Scarlet Eyes, which incites anger in Kurapika, setting his own Scarlet Eyes alight with the fire of all of his fallen clan members. He then makes his chains appear and threatens Mizai, telling him to choose carefully his words from now on. Mizai Storm reports that on the web there is an illegal website in which criminals will sell rare items through. 6 months ago, someone posted a video in which a number of Scarlet Eyes are visible. Having seen this video himself, Kurapika already knows about the content within it. However, the Cow King then reveals that they managed to find the owner of those eyes, something that Kurapika and his crew were completely unable to do. He tells him that they would all like him to join the Zodiacs and take part in the expedition to the New World, an expedition that will last approximately 2 months. He asks him to carefully study the ins and outs of the proposal before coming to a decision. Kurapika considers the offer thoroughly, before thinking about how it's a priority of his to recover the stolen eyes. Because of this, he joins on the spot so that he can find out the true identity of the person who owns those eyes. After a moment, Mizai pulls out a picture and gives it to Kurapika. It's explained that this man in the photo completely dropped out as the 4th prince of the Kaken Empire, a man called Threndinik Huigoro, and he is the confirmed owner of the stolen Scarlet Eyes. Standing there, Kurapika recalls how he acquired the previous sets of Scarlet Eyes that are now in his possession, going over all of the people he's had to take down in his head, finally ending on the man who was his current target, the son of a king. Remembering Pyro from his childhood, Kurapika realizes that his journey is finally beginning. He wonders where he may go, a place where he's greeted or one in which he may call home. However, he sadly remembers that he no longer has anything like that at all in his life. Back in Beyond's lair, the members are still doubtful of having Ging as the second in command behind Beyond. 2 members even decide to fight against him, but Ging quickly offers them money instead. He promises to double Beyond's pay to the members and will pay them in advance. Apart from that, he says that he has nothing else to offer them and also has no other request to make of them. He asks if they have any questions and not to hesitate, as he'll answer them with pleasure. Another member, who seemed skeptical over whether or not he'll get paid in the first place, asks if he's sure he doesn't have any other requests to make of the group, to which Ging again tells them no, and to trust them. Ging says that if they allow him to be the number 2, they'll all be paid accordingly and the case will be closed. That skeptical member ends up giving Ging his account number, and only a few moments later, after being visibly surprised at the money in his account, leaves the lair with the other members noting that he probably won't come back. Ging asks Pariston if he has any other objections, in which Pariston actually says that he's happy with the turn of events. Back over in the Hunter Association building, Leorio manages to get in contact with Kurapika, who is currently travelling by car with the Cow King Mizai. Kurapika asks him about how Gon's doing, and Leorio just brushes it off, saying that he's fine, but he needs his support at the association. After some antics between the two boys, Kurapika ends the call and thanks Mizai for the connection to the prince. Though he knows his abilities will not help much for them during the expedition, Mizai Storm warns Kurapika that the prince has a darker side. Still, he knows he'll probably act recklessly either way when confronted with him, but he still tells him to try and use the safest method possible and avoid detection. Kurapika, hearing this though, reassures him that he has dealt with monsters in human shells, which is also so true. Like, Kurapika is a pure genius when it comes to taking down an enemy who's stronger than him. Man was so confident with the Phantom Troop, he brought a damn spade to his fight with Urvogan, who is like triple his size. Anyways, elsewhere, and for the first time in this arc, we actually see the little man himself, Gon, as he tries to activate his Nen, but is surprised when he finds out that he can no longer access it. Sadly though, we skip away from the previous main character of the series over to the evolved version of Gon, Ging, as he details the previous 5 threats of the Dark Continent to a few members from Beyond's expedition team. He explains that these threats are stronger than the Chimera Ants and people have no countermeasure against them. He continues that the victims of AI and PAP have been found, and a 6th threat might return back with them after their journey. One of Beyond's allies asks, like, why in the world they would want to even travel there? Is there anything they could even possibly gain from actually going? And Ging kinda like blows their minds. He goes way more in depth on the distances around the continent, where to find materials around this new world that can physically change the world they live in already, and the beasts protecting these precious locations, ores or materials. Continuing, he explains that the Hunter Association had also organised an expedition with Netero and a few of his mates in the past, but there is no given official information on this trip. According to Netero himself though, that land is just utterly monstrous, and all of these adventures were supposed to serve as a warning. In order to prevent Beyond or his son from travelling to the Dark Continent, Isaac and the V5 placed a ban over the place, and any ship that would be sent towards the New World would be hit with the seal of the Forbidden. Standing there, Ging asks the people in front of him if they are still ready to take up the challenge, but interrupting them, the member from before who just received the money and gapped it returns, stating that he's ready. In front of a shocked group, the younger bloke tells them that all of his money was spent to save his younger sister in the hospital, and because of that, he's infinitely grateful to him. He agrees that Ging is now undoubtedly second place within the team. Then, the moment that I love most happens. Ging, having found out that dude's history, tells him that he can't afford to let him die any longer, so he will also make sure that he can keep the amounts Beyond offered him. Ging is like an actual Chad. I'm assuming he means like he'll let the younger man stay in safety on the homeland while still letting him get the fat payday from Beyond as well. Dude's making up for all of the random shit he put gone throughout the main story with other people, it looks like. Anyway, I'm not too sure, they're just named Curly. Anyway, they ask Ging about the reference of all of the information in the Dark Continent, and Ging explains that every generation has their nutters, but 300 years ago someone explored the shores of Mobius all on their own, and this person wrote the memoirs of his explanation called The Memories of a New World Traveller, East and West. Yet, Ging sadly explains that until today, only one copy has ever been found, with not the slightest trace of the West book anywhere. After Masha and another team member give 2 possible reasons as to why it might not be found, Ging gives a possible third. One so damn insane I had to double check I'd written the correct text. He says that the book is still currently being written as they speak, and as everyone reacts with surprise over this bizarre statement, he continues revealing that the author is no one other than Don Freaks, the ancient ancestor of Gon and Ging Freaks, which is actually freaking insane. Like, the revelation that another ancestor or another member of the Gon family is still somehow alive and actually on the Dark Continent still writing this book is just mental to me. I absolutely love the idea. Like, does time dilate differently the further you go out in the Dark Continent or something? Anyways, skipping forward to a phone call between father and son, surprisingly, where Gon informs his father that he is not able to bring any aura out, but Ging tells him by saying that while Gon's aura most probably is coming out, as it was when they were atop the tree, he just can't see it himself, pretty much meaning that Gon had now returned to a normal person. He then states to him that he should just be thankful for all that has happened to him, as he could have easily lost a lot more. He then advises Gon to take this opportunity to figure out what he can do as he is now. Gon heeds his father's advice and returns to Whale Island, reuniting with Mito and helping her with her housework just like he used to way back at the very beginning of the series. Man, I love the absolute nostalgia hit this little island gives me. I haven't seen the Hunter x Hunter anime in years, but it was one of the first ever series that I fully completed every single episode of, and just knowing that our little man has finally come home wraps up that side of his story perfectly for me. Anyway, during dinner, Mito questions Gon, asking him if he was bummed out for not being able to go with Ging. Gon replies to this by stating that even if he did go with Ging, he probably would get in his way. However, it probably would have been a different matter if he could still use Nen. His man was massive. He then confesses that now he realizes that he didn't really want to meet Ging, but finding him in fact was just his goal. When Mito agrees with Gon's explanation of his father, she says that Ging didn't have the qualities of a father, and Gon cheekily replies that it must be father like son, and maybe he wasn't actually cut out to be a son at all, to which Mito violently rejects. Gon cracks up laughing as well, before explaining that he was obviously just joking. When he comes down, he stares into his glass and says that it didn't cross his mind that he should stay with him because he's his dad. But if he had been able to use Nen and had felt how truly awesome and powerful he is, then he would have most likely wanted to go with him. Mito sums up their conversation by stating that he was now stuck with her and leaves the room, only to return with 2 large piles of paper, informing the young man that these books were all the documents Gon was going to have to fill in, to which Gon recoils, screaming out in a comical manner, not realizing he ever had to do desk work within the association. Back at the base, and having ended the call with Gon, Ging encounters a member who informs him that the expedition team had divided into 2 groups, those who won't take Ging's money and those who will. Yet since Pariston considers Ging being number 2 now, they won't object to him being second now as well, but then states that all of this disunity will lead to chaos. So to avoid it, they decided not to listen to any of his orders until at least everyone accepts the money. As Ging had also guessed, they were hired by Beyond through Pariston, so Ging considers them to be mediators, and it did not matter to them if he looked down on them for this. Another member then confesses that even if they ganged up on him, they would be no match against Ging. Yet Ging kind of feels that something just ain't right with this entire situation and replies by saying that they don't have to lie, as he knows they're all indeed experts. As Ging states his reasons to believe that the members of Beyond's expedition team are specialists, pretty much just explaining their entire damn dynamic of how their team works, Pariston confesses to himself that Ging's thought process was similar to him, and that this was the first time he had actually started to grow to hate someone. Then Ging drops a damn bomb and says that the 10 members here obviously isn't everyone in the group, so to solve that issue of payments, he tells Pariston to tell the other members he'll pay them up front as well. As Pariston replies telling him he'll let everyone know, he thinks to himself that he wants to see what he'd do to someone he truly hates. Meanwhile, over in a bangin' dance club somewhere in a city, 2 secky-ass peasant females are invited to the hotel room of the prince who has the scarlet eyes. After a quick glance to each other, the girls both accept the invitation. Now arriving at a massive hotel entirely owned by the Prince of Kakin, they are filled with awe at the pure beauty of the house, asking if the prince lived there all by himself. The prince replies to this by saying that he never really feels lonely, as he always invites people on over, and asks the girls to tell him about themselves. Yet, as the majority of you probably foresaw, Trindunik is later seen having a shower alone, then later a bath while talking to someone named Mark on the phone. He complains to him about how the girls were oblivious to what was happening around the world and were only interested in fashion and, their good time stuff. Sitting there with the floor soaked in blood, the prince then asks him to send in another pair of women. This is probably like the dark side that Mizai was referring to when talking with Kurapika earlier. Most likely due to the dude's overwhelming influence within the Kakin family and throughout probably the world, they can't actually arrest or even probably tell him to stop his vile acts. Meanwhile, in her office, Cheadle is ordered by the IPA director to make Beyond sign a contract saying that if he breaks the rules even once, he will spend his entire life in jail. He states that he doesn't want to imagine what would happen if Beyond does manage to escape, and then on top of that, makes a discovery known to the whole world, declaring it as something that he found on his own. If this was to be the case, he threatens Cheadle, telling her that her future won't be so bright if this happens. Heading back down to the cells with the new contract, Cheadle hands it to Beyond and tells him to read it. He agrees with the rules of the contract, reading the majority of it aloud, and saying that it was exactly like he had already predicted. With him not objecting, Beyond ends up signing the contract before striking the pen into the contract itself, causing it to stick into the pad below him. He then ominously explains that only 3 more things remain: qualifications, the means, and a contract. Back in the car, Mizai asks Kurapika about what he'll do with the prince after they take the Scarlet Eyes back, to which Kurapika replies that he'll yield to most demands. All he wants is to get the eyes back. Mizai questions him again, this time asking what he'll do if the prince resists, but Kurapika replies by saying that he's encountered 2 people in the past who said that they would rather die than give him what he wants. He then states that none of them were actually dead now, but both of them had a change of heart, and says that he was sure the prince would follow suit. Having reached the Hunter Association's office, the duo are greeted by a surprised Leorio and Cheeto, who's also just with him. Cheeto leads them to the room in which the other Zodiacs are seated. She then begins the meeting by informing the Zodiacs that these specific nations are the ones that make up the V5, which because of Kakin's recent mess has now turned into the V6 with them as the 6th seat. She then states that the V6 had tried numerous times to enter the Dark Continent, but had failed each time due to those 5 threats I've brought up multiple times throughout this video already. She then proceeds to inform them that the danger rank of the 5 threats has risen from rank B to A, which even surpasses the Chimera Ants, who are a B level threats. Cheeto then reveals their objective: to capture at least one of the 5 threats, survive the trip back home, and deal with Beyond all in the process. Which, if you think about it, is just pure insanity, as the big man Netero himself was barely able to even defeat Meruem in their battle, even with the help of man-made weaponry, like the dude still regenerated. I don't know the strength of the other members in the Zodiacs as of yet, obviously. This is just insanity to me at the moment, seeing them all go there, and I can't picture Leorio being able to take down or even assist in defeating a A-rank threat. Anyway, Cheeto then inquires, asking if anyone has a question, to which Kurapika raises his hand, stating that he has a few. When given permission to speak, he asks all of the Zodiacs if they have identified all of Beyond's allies who are inside of the association. He then proceeds to explain the reasoning of his question, stating that as Beyond was expecting his father's death instead of having to actually defeat him himself, he must have planned his involvement within the association with someone beforehand. He also, on top of dropping that bomb, manages to confirm the theory for the Zodiacs that Pariston and the Temp Hunters were some of Beyond's allies. Mizai, realizing that Kurapika's statements could lead to certain complications, leads him outside and reveals that he and Cheeto had come to the same conclusion as Kurapika did, and requests him to not mention anything about moles in front of the Zodiacs again, as it would just put the mole on alert, to which Kurapika agrees. When the 2 of them then return, all of the Zodiac members reveal their roles they will play in their voyage to the Dark Continent. But we ain't going to go in depth about every single one of their names and why they're a part of the Zodiacs, because this video is evolving into something that's way too long for the amount of chapters that there should be. Like, having never read the Hana Hana manga before, the amount of information stuffed into the story could easily create just like a novel by itself. It's that in depth at points. Anyway, enough of my crazy ass ramblings. Now we actually skip ahead 1 month and find ourselves back in Beyond's lair as Ging shows the people there a cheeky little trick called Pip Play. Which, by the way, is just the ability to manipulate pip-sized balls of Nen and select little animals on your hand. While the other members try to master the trick, Curly approaches Ging and challenges him on a vocabulary match to see who knew the most words of the ancient Kappa language that begin with N. As you could imagine, Ging comfortably wins this contest, and in turn, Curly finally accepts him as number 2. Pariston then suddenly shows up and informs Ging that all of the assassins that were sent into the 289th Hunter examination failed, and acknowledges the ability of his replacement in the Zodiacs. Just then, Mura, along with 2 other Hunter exam participants, arrive and comment that he, like obviously referring to Kurapika, is rumoured to be able to read minds. When questioned about his early arrival, he states that he didn't even need to see the results to know that he didn't pass. Having sat down, he then orders Ging to go away, as he knows that he was previously on the association's side. Yet Ging corrects him by saying that when it comes to the idea of how freedom is considered, he was more closer to Beyond than the association. He then states that he's glad to help Beyond be free, but he can't give Pariston a pass, as his true goal is to help Beyond and deter the snake Pariston. Muhu replies to this by saying that he just didn't buy it all, but Usamin interrupts him, affirming Ging's claim that he wasn't on the association's side. Musha becomes surprised by the member's testimony, asking him since when did they accept Ging as a friend. The member replies to this by saying that he still hated the dude's guts, but let's just sit back and see how it goes for a few days. Just then, the other Hunter exam participants arrive, saying that they won't be waiting, as Beyond is the only boss and they don't care about some irrelevant number 2. They then present Ging and Pariston with 2 options: either Pariston leave the expedition team, or Ging leaves the expedition team. Neither Ging nor Pariston agrees with the two options though, and instead, Ging produces a third option while Pariston produces a fourth. Either the assassins will leave, or the assassins will die. Instantly though, Muha's henchmen use conjured guns to shoot aura bullets directly at Ging and Pariston, who easily manage to dodge out of the way and escape through an underground passage. Ging complains about them having a bad temper, to which Pariston says that he's not as crazy as he expected. Ging tells him to shut up as well, as Pariston actually provoked them in the first place. Hearing this, the sly rat cheekily jokes that he was just going along with what Ging had said. After gaining a bit of distance between the two, Pariston asks if they should fight back, to which Ging agrees, but he only wants to do it gently. He analyzes their abilities, noting that they're emitters who have to conjure guns to fight. Seeing him preparing to attack, Pariston asks if it's okay for him to watch him use his ability. But because Ging's like literally a Chad and not a dad, he responds affirmatively saying that it ain't no problem. Watching with a gaze of amazement, Pariston witnesses Ging reproduce Leorio's remote punch by continuously slamming the ground over and over again, allowing him to send a blast of aura through the ground towards the approaching brutes, before suddenly appearing above the surface and pummeling the trio of unsuspecting mercenaries. Pariston asks if his ability is the copy kind, but Ging explains that he just has this random talent to be able to imitate someone's ability if it's the physical type and he has been hit by it. Continuing on this brute show of dominance, Ging surmises on how Leorio must have been palpating his patience and using his aura like an ultrasound. Through this, he assumes that his Nen ability was the result of experimentation with aura and tapping. He literally flexes on Pariston some more, and again he uses the same ultrasound-like technique to discover the two enemies on the other side of the wall. Imagining those said enemies have a tumor or like blood clot inside of them that can't be reached with normal medicine, he then shoots two aura bullets that travel through the wall, completely taking down the unsuspecting henchmen. After using that same ability again, he confirms that there are no more enemies coming after them. Pariston speculates it is because they had given up, but Ging disagrees, stating they must assume that their mission was completed. He reveals that in fact, he had known all along that the whole thing was actually staged by Pariston, and the biggest mistake in his attempt to fool Ging was that the angry guy with the mohawk didn't bring up the fifth possible choice of both Ging and Pariston leaving, although he admits if he had brought that choice up he might have actually gone with it. He then states that he'd gone along with Pariston's show only because he felt bad for the ones who were forced to play it, but he says if the former rat wants to see his real abilities, he has to come at him himself. Back in the lounge now, as the henchmen clean up the remnants of the couch they blasted to bits before, Muha expresses his perplexity about their shame having been found out, since he thought his acting was extremely good. However, Ging mocks him, plainly imitating one of his lines, and irritating the mercenary in a joking manner. Ging states that Muha should be more worried about his soldiers than his acting, since they are far too weak to face the Dark Continent alone, mainly only as backup reserves at best. Sipping on his drink like the G this mercenary looks like, he replies that's exactly what they are, and these soldiers, who also add in their 2 cents, state that their duties are limited to reconnaissance, artillery support, and covering fire, while the shooting itself will be covered by Golem. Ging recognizes him as a symbolic type Nen user, which Muha confirms before explaining that Golem himself conjures a powerful, heavy weapon that is manned by an emitter who creates the bullets. This way, both the weapon and the bullets are stronger than they would be separate. Ging understands Golem was also the one who gave the firearms to the henchmen and praises the adaptability of the tactic. Muha continues explaining that for mid to long term group warfare, carrying real guns loaded with Nen bullets greatly increases the efficiency on the battlefield. Golem and the 10 other men with assault and recon duties make up the Stonewall Squad, the legendary unit which came out of the Lubo Civil War without a single casualty. Ging is impressed by Golem's abilities and asks its real name, but a distorted voice replies that Golem is how it's been called by its comrades and declares that further inquiries will not be answered. Confused and curious, Muha informs Ging that he's known Golem for over 3 years and still doesn't know anything about who pilots it. Ging admits that, to be honest, he was expecting it, as the Golem had been giving off that "don't talk to me" vibe. Getting down to business now, Ging asks Muha to convince the other members of Beyond's group to take his money, since he's in charge of all of the divisions. The mercenary responds that he was fine with having the hunter as number 2, until he offered to give them money. Him along with all of his men think soldiers should value each other's trust more than anything. The rumour that some of them could be brought would lead to them being ostracised. The fact that Ging was tossing around his money as if it had no consequences was a cause of great anger to him, as, like the title of a book or the place where the remote is put on the table, something had already been decided in merit, and trying to change it so carelessly only had negative repercussions, to the point many members even considered quitting. Mura then demands that Ging explain himself, but the hunter can't. He can only say that he is sorry, and since he can't take back the money from those who had accepted it, as it would just add to this mess, he suggests to settle the matter with donations to the Norwell Fund for families of fallen soldiers. Which, by the way, if you're confused, this whole trust fund type foundation thing supports families of fallen mercenaries, so obviously this hits home for Mura right here. Taken by surprise, Mura asks him if he is serious, as by opening a grandchild account, he won't be able to refuse requests by the grandfather accounts. Ging replies that it's for the best, as it shows his determination and won't risk stirring up any weird rumours. Mura inquires why is he so keen on giving them his money, and Ging admits that he honestly just doesn't know. He often ends up in the kind of situation where he talks a lot and then wonders why he's done it. But probably the main reason was that he knew the expedition members aren't the kind of people who would be brought by money, so he knew that if they were to take it, it would actually mean they have accepted him. Perhaps it was also because he was happy there were other fools like him around. He confesses he had planned to go to the Dark Continent on his own, but the fuss caused by Beyond's own expedition made it impossible. So he was very angry at Beyond and Pariston, but at the same time aware that Beyond had been preparing for even longer than he has. When it came to his base, he had not straightened out his feelings yet and only wanted to blow off some steam. He doesn't even remember how the whole money topic originated. Masher though, remember the thumb looking dude from earlier? Well, he jumps in on the conversation to give his take on what happened. Masher explains that Ging himself offered it while he was arguing with Pariston. Initially, Masher believed he was just a troublemaker with a provocative facade and the tendency to try and manipulate others. But during the discussion, he heard the two former Zodiacs speaking about Isaac Netero and Ging's feelings toward the Dark Continent. Masher and Marion were ready to fight and the event disorder rose, but since they prioritized solving their problem, they recognized that Ging's lead had undeniable merits. Mura, I don't know if I'm saying this guy's name right, it seems German to me and I don't know German that well, so doesn't exactly understand how this is related to the money. Ging though admits he was just trying to be cool about it and at the time didn't foresee that it would cause such an uproar. Although his relationship with Pariston is complicated, he is not concocting anything, he just wants to thwart Pariston's schemes and help Beyond be free. Gollum joins the conversation, asking Mura why he had not told them sooner. The mercenary awkwardly responds that in order to quell the disorder, he had to get Ging to acknowledge his shame. He urges Gollum to try and understand his feelings, yet to no avail, causing Ging to feel like this is all his fault as well. In the end, Mura accepts and says he'll talk to the soldiers provided that the money does indeed go to the Norwell Foundation. Plus, despite Ging being the number 2 in the operation, it will be the mercenaries that will be giving the orders to everyone on the battlefield, and those orders are absolute. Ging agrees, while comically answering "Sir, yes sir," which obviously hella reminds me of Gon. Honestly, dude is just a grown-up version of Gon on that world smoke level. Anyways, with the matter finally settled, Mura asks Pariston if the ones who are returning to their base will accept Ging, and quickly receives an affirmative answer. Pariston tells Ging that since the infiltration failed, he may now send his money to the list of comrades he is transmitting to him, and congratulates him for getting a cemented position amongst the group. However, as we know, Ging is a multiverse level theorist and states that his authority is only a name, as everyone will continue to do as Pariston says. Either way, he is still willing to let Pariston lead, as he wants to watch, but the latter declines, wanting to actually see how Ging indeed handles things. Ging smirks back and declares that he will not hold back at all. I'm just going to cut myself off here again as well, since the next arc after this one may never actually be completed, depending on how frequently Togashi releases these chapters. Hopefully the next 33 that are confirmed will be able to complete the Succession arc, but if not, be sure to let me know down below what fights throughout the Succession arc you want me to cover, and honestly, just push this video to 5k likes and I'll break down that arc into parts so I can at least cover some of it. Anyways, back over with Big C at the final part of the 289th Hunter exam. There, she asks the applicants whether they know about Beyond's expedition to the Dark Continent, and if they knew how and when did they get access to that information. The participants were also asked if they would explain the information in the best way to a person that did not know about this, and on what the merits of receiving this information beforehand were. In another room, Kurapika and Mizai are trying to verify what the applicants say. He concludes that the first examinee doesn't know. The second, Murher, has mixed truth in with his lies, and the third one is hiding extremely important information. Kurapika is actually surprised at the number of people that have cleared the thermography and lie detectors. He then explains his abilities to Mesa Storms and the limitations that they have. Obviously, I'm not going to go like super in depth on all of the stuff that was explained years ago in the anime. So after explaining all that, he thinks about the possibility that if the enemy has someone on their side that can manipulate another's memory, then his chain would likely not work, as that person wouldn't even realize they were lying to begin with. Skipping away over to Prince T with the crazy name, well, he gets a call from his elder brother, Big Benjamin, who's this jackdust dude, and man, you know, also on top of that, is also wrestling a freaking lion. Benjamin informs him that their father has decided that whoever survives this expedition becomes the new king. Thankful of God, Tagalong warns his brother that he is the one who is going to be king. After the call ends, he then gets another call from another bodyguard on another phone like behind him. Dude has like a stack of like 10 phones there. Theta informs him that all 5 of his staff members have actually passed the Hunter exam. She explained that if they lied or hid any information from the Hunter Association, they would have actually been rejected. So they told the truth. She confirms that the bodyguards of the princes that haven't participated in the exam were Benjamin's and Tyson's, or the 1st and 6th princes respectively. On top of that, all of the bodyguards from the 7th prince, Lucidus, failed the exam. Having heard everything, Tagalong orders Theta to return to her defensive duties and tells everyone to get an in-depth understanding of the Black Whale. Back at the Hunter exam, Mizai confirms that there is no one within the Zodiacs that has the powers to manipulate somebody's memory. He continues to say that within the previous Zodiacs there were 3 factions, with Ging and Pariston being exceptions. He knows all of the powers of the Hunters within his own faction, which include Botabai, Cheadle and Ginta, but he obviously doesn't know the powers of the other members. The duo are obviously suspicious of Junday and Mura and wonder if they were purposely sent into the Hunter exam as decoys by some powerful spies. Mizai infers that the spy may be a traitor within the Zodiacs, since Pariston left so soon after losing the presidential election. Hearing this, Kurapika volunteers to find the traitor using his chain ability and will wait in a nearby room while he confronts them. Suddenly re-entering the room, Mizai abruptly confronts all of the Zodiacs about there being a possible spy within the group. He asks everyone to once again reveal their abilities, but before he can proceed any further, Kanzai starts raging out over having to show his ability. Not phased though, the Cow Zodiac explains that he would have actually helped Beyond if he had met him before. He would have gladly tried to make his dream come true and wouldn't have changed his mind after seeing the chairman's final video. However, it's a question of sequence, not betrayal, and that's why he's asking him to reveal their abilities. Continuing, Mizai reveals his abilities to them all and explains how it works exactly. Elsewhere, the Mega Brain Kurapika watches the whole thing on a monitor in a separate room via a hidden camera. He uses his sneaky ability to quickly scan the Zodiacs, passing off ones who aren't spies. However, he eventually finds out that the traitor is indeed the monkey Sayu. So that there does officially bring us to the very end of what is the Hunter x Hunter Dark Continent Expedition arc, or whatever you want to call it. There's so much that goes down through this arc, obviously ending on a massive cliffhanger with Sayu being called out as a traitor by Kurapika here. As I've said, you know, let me know down in the comment section below what fights from throughout the Succession arc you want me to go over, and if you want me to actually just put it out in parts, push this video to 10k likes so that I know you want that, and just leave, you know, like comments down below. Let me know what other series you want me to go over and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, if you guys are new around here and haven't subscribed already, then make sure you hit the subscribe button and also be sure to leave a like on the video, as it really helps out with pushing my content to a bunch of new amazing people. But anyway, enough of that. For now, it's been your professional degenerate, Diavolo, and I will see you all in a bit. Bye.